Now we are going to start the deep muscles of posterior compartment of leg. So mainly the deep muscles are coming to first one, that is the poplitease. It's present in the popliteal fossa. Next comes the flexor digitorum longus. According to the name, you can see flexor digitorum. Digits means it is going to the toes, right? And it is long muscle and it's a flexor. Next comes the flexor hallucis longus. Actually, in our upper limb, as we said, the pollicis belongs to the thumb finger. So here the hallucis belongs to the great toe. So this is a flexor hallucis longus. And next comes the tibialis posterior. So this one is tibialis posterior. So these are the muscles of our posterior compartment. So let us start understanding each of one. So first let us start with the popliteus. So popliteus is actually a flat and triangular muscle, as you can see here. So it is mainly confined to the uppermost part of the leg, and its origin is tendinous, you can see here, and its insertion is fleshy, right? So origin is tendon like and insertion is fleshy. So its origin is mainly intracapsular, and this arises from anterior part of popliteal groove, you can see here, on the lateral surface of lateral condyle of femur. Yes, and this will also get its origin from the arcuate popliteal ligament and also outer margin of lateral meniscus of knee. Actually this side, outer margin of lateral meniscus of knee. So it will get inserted into the posterior surface of tibia, especially into the middle two-thirds, you can see here. The middle two-thirds of triangular area just above the soleal line. Okay, so this side will be soleal line, just above the soleal line you will have the insertion of popliteus muscle. So no supply, of course, like as we already discussed, the superficial muscles are all supplied by tibial nerve. Even this deep muscle popliteus is supplied by the tibial nerve. So main action of this popliteus is to rotate the femur laterally. So actually the femur, you can see here, to rotate it laterally towards the lateral side. Okay. That is a function, especially during initial stages of flexion of knee, and it also unlocks the knee joint. For the flexion of knee, you need to unlock the knee joint, and it flexes the knee joint, it retracts its lateral meniscus and prevents it from being crushed between the condyles of tibia and femur. So it also prevents the crushing of our lateral meniscus between the tibia and fibula. Okay. Sorry, tibia and femur. So between the tibia and femur, the crushing is prevented mainly because of our popliteus muscle. So this is all about popliteus. Next we'll start about flexor digitorum longus. So you can see this is a muscle which is arising from upper two-thirds of medial part of posterior surface of tibia, just below the soleal line. So just below the soleal line you will have its origin, and it is getting inserted into the tendon by means of tendon, divides into 4 slips. So it will form a tendon and it will divide into 4 slips. You can see here 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so total 4 slips. Only this one, don't consider the grade 2. Except grade 2, the remaining 4 fingers are supplied by this flexor digitorum longus, because the grade 2 has special muscle, that is a flexor hallucis longus, right? So this flexor digitorum longus supplies these 4 fingers, and each slip is attached to plantar surface of distal phalanx. Actually this proximal phalanx, distal phalanx. To the distal phalanx, actually each slip will get attached. And important relationships of this tendon are: the tendon crosses tibialis posterior in the lower part of the leg. So you can see here, this is the tibialis posterior. So in the lower part, this flexor digitorum longus is crossing the tibialis posterior, and it passes deep to flexor retinaculum. So it passes in the flexor retinaculum to enter the sole of foot. Here it crosses the tendon of flexor hallucis longus, as you can see here. So this tendon receives the insertion of flexor digitorum accessoris, and also slips per digits give origin to 4 lumbrical muscles here. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see the 4 lumbrical muscles also give origin in between the slips of flexor digitorum longus. So of course this is also supplied by the tibial nerve, same like popliteus. So the main action of flexor digitorum longus is to cause the flexion of lateral 4 toes. It enters the sole from medial side, and flexor digitorum accessoris get inserted into lateral aspect of the tendon. So the toes get flexed in line of respective toe by simultaneous contraction of these muscles. Okay, and it also causes plantar flexion of the ankle. So what is plantar flexion? For example, you can think my hand as now toe. So if my hand will go like this is called plantar flexion, like this. Okay, so for the plantar flexion, mainly as we discuss the superficial all muscles also for plantar flexion, and almost like this deep muscles are also for plantar flexion, and also help in maintenance of medial longitudinal arch of foot, and stabilize of course is lateral foretox, especially during the walking. Okay, so now let us discuss about flexor hallucis longus, this one. So its origin is arising from the lower 3/4 of posterior surface of fibula, right? Whereas this digitorum longus is from the tibia, and also from some part you can see like middle of the tibia, whereas flexor hallucis longus is coming from the middle of the posterior surface of fibula, right? And except lowest 2.5, so, and also from interosseous membrane, some part also from interosseous membrane. So finally of course it will go and insert into the phalanx surface, especially base of distal phalanx of the great toe. So important relationship is like tendons run across lower part of posterior surface of tibia, here you can see, and reaching the calcaneus it turns, okay. So after reaching near the calcaneus, it turns below the substentaculum tali and serves as a pulley for it. So as the tendon lies on medial side of calcaneum, it runs deep to flexor retinaculum and is surrounded by synovial sheet. This tendon runs forwards in sole when it is crossed by tendon of flexor digitorum longus here. So this flexor hallucis longus is crossed by the flexor digitorum longus, already we discussed. So what is the nerve supply? Of course for the flexor hallucis longus also the tibial. And the action, the main function is great flexor, plantar flexor of the great toe, and also help in plantar flexion of the ankle, and also stabilize the great toe especially in walking, and help to maintain the medial longitudinal arch of the foot. So these are all the functions of flexor hallucis longus. Next, the last muscle of this compartment, that is the deep muscle of our posterior compartment, is tibialis posterior. So it's the deepest muscle on the back of the leg. Origin is from the upper 2/3 of lateral part of posterior surface of tibia, you can see here, right? And it's below the soleal line, and also from the posterior surface of fibula in front of medial crest here. So the posterior surface of interosseous membrane also give its origin. So the insertion is tibialis posterior is inserted, you can see here, from here. It is inserted into the upper 2/3 of like tuberosity on the navicular bone. The tendon also gives off slip to all tarsal bones except the talus, and to the second, third, fourth metatarsal bones. Once again I'll repeat the insertion. Tibialis posterior is inserted into tuberosity of navicular bone. You can see this is the navicular bone, and also it will give off the slips to all tarsal bones except talus, remember that, and also to second, third and fourth metatarsal bone it will give its attachment. So this is the insertion. Now what is the important relationship of this tibialis posterior? The tendon passes behind the medial malleosus, you can see behind the medial malleosus, grooving it. The tendon then passes deep to flexor retinaculum, That's why in the flexor retinaculum, if you remember the content of flexor retinaculum, you will have the tibialis posterior, you will have the flexor hallucis longus, you have flexor digitorum longus. So all the deep muscles, all these three deep muscles are taking part in the flexor retinaculum, right? And the terminal part of tendon supports the spring ligament over here. So of course this is also supplied by a tibial nerve, and the main action of this is it's an inverter and also powerful plantar flexor. So as we already discussed, the superficial and deep muscles of posterior compartment mainly used for the plantar flexion, like this. Okay, so for that they are useful, and it is an important factor maintaining medial and transverse arches of foot. So mainly this tibialis posterior maintain the medial and transverse arch of foot. And next, the calf muscles are tested mainly by plantar flexing the foot and feeling the contraction of muscle. You can see here this is a testing for the deep muscles. So this is how we try to plantar flex it and test these posterior compartment muscles, either superficial or deep, because all are taking part in plantar flexion action. But the powerful plantar flexion is done by tibialis posterior. So by this we will complete the deep muscles. Next we will move on to our posterior tibial artery.